Hi, it's Steph, and we're at the Home Depot, and they have a whole new shipment of evergreens and shrubs as well as perennials. So let's go ahead and take a look at the August inventory at the Home Depot. If you're looking for a dark foliage shrub, this could be a good option. This is a purple leaf sand cherry, and it has these really pretty kind of burgundy colored foliage. The new growth is pretty red though, so I'm going to show that to you. You can see here how bright that growth is. Now these will bloom at some point in pretty early spring with these really little pink flowers. And as far as size goes, my sister has one of these planted in one of her front borders, and you can size control them with a light pruning, but they grow anywhere from 6 feet tall to 6 feet wide. So a really pretty dark foliage shrub. They do like full sun, and they're pretty hardy down to a zone 4 or 5 Fahrenheit, and these here are in number 3 container for $29.98. And if you're looking to add some shrubs this fall to have some blooms next spring, this would be a great option. This is a rhododendron, and rhododendrons are understory trees, which means they like to be planted in the shade of other trees. And they do best with a part sun, part shade location. And the growth on them varies. This one here is called the Caban Boll. It looks like it gets 5 to 7 feet tall and 5 to 7 feet wide. They're very hardy. This one is listed as negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are just really beautiful evergreens because they have this broad leaf that is really shiny, and as soon as they are done blooming, they start setting their buds for the following year's blooms. Now, I do find that sometimes when the buds start to swell at the end of the winter, heading into spring, I do have to spray them for the deer, but in general, these are a really hardy, great evergreen. And these are a number 3 container for $44.98. And speaking of fall planting, here are some Arborite. So if you're looking to create a living fence or to get some more privacy in your garden, Arborite are a great option. Now, there are a couple of types of Arborite, and I actually made a video on my channel that describes the difference between the green giant Arborite as well as the emerald green Arborite. This variety here is the green giant, and it grows much larger than the emerald green. So this one has a more loose kind of broad growth habit. It is also more deer resistant than the emerald green. Now, something that they both have in common, both the Arborite green giant and the emerald green, is that they both like water. So if you are going to newly plant a new hedge or privacy fence, living fence, you do want to make sure that you water these very well for their first growing season, and if you go through periods of drought thereafter, because Arborite do like water, and that is the fastest way to get them to die, is by not properly watering them. But these here are a small container, which makes them easy to plant, and the green giants grow super fast. My neighbor put up a row of them, and in just 5 years they've like more than doubled in size. I would say they've even tripled in size. So these here are $14.98, and this looks like it's just about a gallon or a gallon and a half. So makes them affordable and easier to plant with a smaller root ball. At my Home Depot, they have this raised planting bed in their garden area, the garden nursery center. And look at this. They have these tomato plants with these really large tomatoes growing. Isn't that awesome? Look at this. It's loaded with tomatoes. I thought that was so fun. They also have a butterfly bush for the pollinators, as well as some coneflower. And along the other side, there's some sedum. See that? They have some sedum, and this looks like some kind of vinca and some grasses. So I always think this is pretty that they kind of did this little planting bed in this area here. Here's another evergreen that people often use as a living fence or privacy screening, and it is the Leland Cyprus. But from what I understand, these are not a great option. They tend to get really big, and then once they get big, they tend to sometimes topple over in windstorms. So they're not a very sturdy tree for the size that they get. That might not be the case everywhere, but that is just some experiences that I have heard people share regarding the Leland Cyprus. But if you are comfortable with this tree, it is a beautiful tree. It has a bit of a blue-green kind of look to the foliage, and it likes full sun. It gets 20 to 30 feet in height, and it is hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And let's see how much these are. These appear to be a 2-gallon container for $29.98. There's also a type of cute spruce here. Now these get pretty large spruces. It is not marked and it does not have a price, but my best guess is that it's somewhere around $29.98. Now spruces I do find to be deer resistant in my garden, and they generally like full sun. There are also some larger containers of the green giant. These look like they're maybe a 3-gallon for $34.98. And here are the emerald green arborvitae. You can see that the texture on these are different than the green giant arborvitae. These have a tighter, more narrow kind of growth habit. You can see in the photo as well. These get to be 12 to 15 feet in height and 24 to 36 inches in width, and they're hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And this container here, let's see which one they have in stock. It is the number 2 container for $29.98. And if you're looking for an arborvitae or an evergreen with a rounded growth habit, this might be a good option. This is the arborvitae danica, and you can see that it grows in more of a globe shape or ball shape, which is really nice because if you like that type of structure in the garden, you wouldn't have to prune on this like you would, like, say, a boxwood. And these like full sun, they're hardy down to negative 40 degrees, and they get to be 18 to 24 inches in size. So great size to tuck into the garden. The only thing I'm not sure about is that since deer are very attracted to some types of arborvitae, is whether or not they would eat on these. So something you might want to look up. Has a really nice shape. I really like the way it looks in that photo. $14.98 for this 1 gallon container. And some Sunfinity Sunflowers. Now these are annuals, but they have tons of buds, and this is a great plant that you can pick up now and will bloom for you throughout the fall. These transition beautifully into the fall, and even if you wanted to update some containers, these grow really well in containers. Look how many stems and buds are on these. A ton, and they're so cute. Look at that cheery little face. These are $15.98, and they look like they're about a 1.5 gallon size container. And just as the name suggests, sunflowers like sun. And look how cute that little bee is. It just landed on this flower that I'm holding for it. Look at that. I know we don't want to think about fall yet, but look at this. Some of the ornamental fall cabbages are already showing up here at the Home Depot. And these look like they're $3.98. Some really pretty ones. Look at that. I would probably hold off on doing any fall containers until probably at least Labor Day, maybe a little bit later. I usually like to wait until closer to the first day of fall. But of course, in retail, everything is about a season ahead, right? Look at this. So pretty. And look at the cute ornamental peppers. So pretty. These are also $3.98. And let's see how big the containers are. They look like they could be about a 6-inch container. They still have lots of really pretty and healthy looking perennials here at my store. You can see here they have some bee balm, and it's a really pretty pink. So let me check it out. It's called Be Mine Bee Balm. But that looks like it's a fuchsia color. And I don't know how tall it gets, this variety. They vary in height. Some of the, like the wild bee balm can be pretty tall, and then some of them are pretty short. This one says it's 15 to 18 inches in height, 18 to 20 inch spacing, water when dry, and it is $9.98. It likes full sun. Now, something you should be aware of with bee balm is just like phlox, they are prone to something called powdery mildew, which means it would have like a powdery looking substance on the foliage. And a way to prevent that is to properly space the plant so that they have a good amount of airflow around them. That's a really pretty color. See if I can find one that is more in bloom. But lots of cone flowers too, which I absolutely love in my garden. In July, they start blooming for me here in my zone 6, and they are stunning. Look at all these pretty hot colors. Here's the bee balm that is more in bloom, so you can see that pretty color. Almost looks like the Jacob Klein, I believe, is the variety that gets a bit taller as well. Look at that, so pretty. This also smells really nice. Monarda or bee balm. Smells like bergamot. It's a really nice fragrance, almost a little bit minty. This coneflower here is called Artisan Red Ombre. It's a really bright red, very pretty. And then it looks like it fades to a bit of a coral kind of orangey red. Look at that. I have a lipstick that looks like that. Very pretty. The yellow finches love coneflowers. You might see them picking off some of the leaves to snack on. And if you leave these cones up over the winter, it provides some visual interest in your garden and provides food for wildlife. So all around great perennial plant. They like full sun in a very well-draining soil. That is the fastest way to lose your coneflower, is by having them sit in too much moisture. They will get something called crown root rot, and then they won't return for you. So something to be aware of. A well-draining soil and full sun is where they are happiest. These are by Vigoro, and they're $10.98. And they mostly get anywhere from 18 to 24 inches in height. This one says it gets 24 to 32 inches. So I would say 24 inches is probably like an average size, with the native variety, the Echinacea purpurea, getting much taller at closer to 4 feet in height in some places. And here you can see that there are some of the dark side of the moon astilbe. Now these are sitting on the edge of the parking lot in full sun, and they are handling it just fine. Now the thing with astilbe is that it has traditionally been a shade plant, but this particular variety by proven winners, the dark side of the moon, has been bred to be able to handle sun and shade, which is amazing. And it has this really beautiful dark foliage color. Look at that. This makes a beautiful contrast to other perennials in the garden. I planted some of this in my garden last year and I absolutely love it. The blooms are like a light, medium kind of pink, almost a little bit of purple to them. Really pretty. So this here is it looks like maybe almost a 2-gallon or 1.5-gallon container for $19.98. But it's quite a large plant. So you might even be able to divide it right out of the container, keep it well watered and watch it while it establishes. And then you can get 2 plants for the price of 1. But a really pretty perennial that you can place in shade or in sun. Dark side of the moon astilbe. I'm always so impressed by my Home Depot. It absolutely is always well stocked and has such beautiful plants. And I know that you all tell me that as well. But really, they do a great job here at my store. Look at this. Amazing. So first I'm going to show you is this blanket flower, or Gaillardia, I believe it's called. I know that that's what it's called. I just never know if I pronounce it correctly. Gaillardia. So this is often known as blanket flower, and it has these really pretty shades of orange and red. Look at that. They like full sun. They're pretty short in stature, probably about 10 to 12 inches max in height, and they like sun. Really pretty, spreads really well, and even when they're done blooming, their cones or their seed heads are really pretty. Look at that. So they provide interest even when there aren't blooms on the plant. But these would also be a great option for a container for the fall. And then when you're done with them in the container, you can plant them out in your landscape. It looks like they're on sale too. So my store is having a special buy on these perennials that are listed as $9.98. So they would be 2 for $13. And look at this, mini butterfly bushes. Now, butterfly bushes, they are also a plant that likes full sun and a very well draining soil. I have the proven winners Pugster Blue in my garden, and I love them because they were a compact version of a butterfly bush, but they were in soil that stayed too moist in my garden, and I lost them. They didn't return for me after winter. So that is something to keep in mind. In general, they are hardy down to a zone 5, and this particular variety here is called the butterfly bush chrysalis. And it gets to be 20 to 28 inches in height and needs 26 to 30 inch spacing. So it looks like it is also very compact and would be classified as a dwarf butterfly bush. Hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it blooms early spring through fall. Now, the thing with butterfly bushes or buddleias is they will continue to bloom. They kind of start late in the spring, I would say, maybe late spring, early summer, but then they go nonstop until your first hard frost. And if you deadhead them, they always have new buds coming up to bloom. And to me, they smell really nice. They remind me of lilacs. So these here are $9.98. So they would also be part of that sale. So they'd be 2 for $13. And look at this beautiful salvia. It has a pretty pink coloring. And there is a bee on it right there. Bees, pollinators absolutely love salvia. And the thing with salvias is that you can get some that are perennial as well as annual. And there are some that are different heights and some that bloom at different times. So this one here looks like it might bloom in the summer, where I have the May night variety that blooms in mid to late spring. So if you love salvia, you can plant different varieties to extend your salvia bloom show. This variety here is called Salvia Rose Marvel. It likes full sun, and it looks like it gets 10 to 12 inches in height and 12 to 14 inch spacing, hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So with that height, this would be a great front of the border plant. And some Speedwell or Veronica. This one here looks like it's almost done blooming. It blooms from the bottom up, so the tips still need to bloom, but a really pretty pink. This would look gorgeous combined with some other purple perennials in the garden, like say maybe even like an aster, or even like the perennial alliums, the ball-shaped alliums that are about to bloom. My millennium is bursting in bloom right now, and it looks beautiful. So this Veronica or Speedwell is called Veronica Raspberry, and let's check out the specs on this one. It blooms late spring through summer and plant in full sun, prefers moist, well-drained soil. And this one gets to be 12 to 18 inches in height. Really pretty variety. Speaking of the perennial alliums, here we are. This is the variety that is a clumping version of allium. It's not like the bulbs that you plant in the fall that bloom in the spring. This one is a little bit different, and it has this small round-shaped or sphere-shaped bloom, just really beautiful, and this strappy foliage. So even when it's not in bloom, it just looks like a clump of ornamental grass. The other great thing about this plant is because it is part of the onion family, pests like rabbits and deer stay away from it. So that is an added bonus. But these are beautiful, planted in drifts. I actually have mine in a group of 3. The variety that I have is Millennium, and I also have one called Lavender Bubbles. But this one here is the Serendipity. And look how beautiful that looks. It is stunning. It looks like a bunch of little purple flower lollipops. And they like full sun, part sun. They get to be 15 to 20 inches in height. And they are hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The great thing about these Proven Winners tags is also that they will tell you what to pair these with. So it'll give you some suggestions. So pair with rose mallow or hibiscus, some Russian sage, stonecrop sedum, coneflower, switchgrass, and so forth. So I always think that's a great little tidbit that you can find on these Proven Winners tags. And these here are, it looks like a 3-gallon, a number 3 container for $24.98. And look at this really pretty pink phlox. This is by Proven Winners, and it is the Opening Act Ultra Pink. It looks like it gets to be 22 to 28 inches in height, and it likes full sun. Now, most phlox, they need full sun, unless you get something like a woodland phlox or a creeping phlox that can take a little bit more shade. And you do want to give them proper spacing so that they don't get powdery mildew. But this one is a really beautiful kind of light pink. And here's the best part. It's actually on clearance. $9.98 for this large number 3 container. That is awesome, which is kind of rare to come by clearance at Home Depot. So when you find one, that's quite a score. And they have 2 of them here at my store. So if you're in the Dartmouth location and you want some phlox, it's a good buy. I have too much in my garden already, so no room for it. But look at here, they also have some daylilies. Now these are done blooming now, but they still have really pretty foliage, and they will bloom for you beautifully in your garden next year if you plant them. Daylilies are super hardy. This one here is also Proven Winners. It is the Rainbow Rhythm Primal Scream. Looks like it's a creamsicle orange. Full or part sun, 34 inches in height. One thing that I did struggle with in my garden with daylilies was deer. They really love to eat the buds. So right when they start budding up, it's important to start spraying them with some kind of repellent to keep them safe so that you can enjoy the blooms. But check this out. These are also marked down. So number 3 container for $9.98. And that is because they have no more blooms on them, right? They're done blooming, so they don't look as appealing to the consumer. So that means you plant them and you enjoy them next year at a discounted price. And check out these beautiful heucheras or coral bells. Now this is a wonderful way to add a lot of color and visual interest to a shady spot in the garden without the need for using flowers, just through the use of foliage. Now this one, let's see what variety it is. It's really pretty. It is called the Coral Bells Heuchera Carnival. Now the thing with these is that they generally can only take part sun, otherwise they start to get crispy. There are some varieties that can take more sun. This one is listed as part sun. Has a mounded growth habit. These are $10.98 by Vigoro. And it gets to be 10 to 12 inches in height, and it is hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Really pretty. I don't find that the deer touch my heuchera or coral bells, so they've been pretty good, and I do have lots of bunnies, and those don't seem to have been touching them either. So I think that in general, they are probably mostly resistant, but it also depends on what type of bunnies and deer you have in your garden. And check out this really beautiful verbena. Now, I absolutely love verbena because it has such a whimsical appearance, and the pollinators love it. It pairs so well with all perennials, pretty much. Whether you have hot colors or warm colors, these even look beautiful with colors like red and orange. So just a really versatile perennial. And this one looks like it's a bit shorter in stature. So I'm growing in my garden the Verbina bonariensis, which is a pretty tall variety. But this one here is called Verbina Lollipop. It's a version of Verbina bonariensis, but it looks like it gets to be about only 24 inches in height, where the other variety that I'm growing can get upwards of 4 feet in height. And it needs 18 to 24 inch spacing, and this one's pretty well branching too. Sometimes the Verbina bonariensis can be a little bit thinner, but you can pinch it to make it bush out and branch out. This is not usually a perennial in my zone. It says that it's hardy to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but it does self-seed usually pretty well so that you will get some seedlings next season. And it blooms late spring through mid-fall. But look at that beautiful purple coloring. You can see the bees all over it. And look how pretty it looks with the yarrow on the side of it. So it needs a little bit of deadheading, but this is a pretty yellow yarrow. And it has that blue-gray foliage. Look at that. Really pretty one. This is the Moonshine variety, which is a really popular yarrow. Gets to be 18 to 24 inches in height, needs 24-inch spacing. With yarrow, you certainly want to give them plenty of sun, because if you don't, they have a tendency to kind of flop in the center. So something to keep in mind, but a really beautiful perennial. And here is some Agastache, which I planted some Blue Fortune Agastache in my garden last summer, and it is gorgeous. This pairs so beautifully with Black-Eyed Susan or Rudbeckia. So I would say that that is like my favorite combination in my garden right now, heading into the August garden. They just started blooming their heads off at maybe 2 weeks ago at the end of July, and I love it. So this is a good mid to late summer bloomer. So some people call it Agastache, some people call it Agastache. I actually usually say Agastache. And so this one here is also known as Anise Hyssop. It's the Lavender Haze, and it's listed as perennial. The Blue Fortune I do know is perennial. It likes full sun, gets 20 to 24 inches in height, and needs 12 to 18-inch spacing, water when dry, and hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Blooms early to late summer. And these are $9.98, so they are on sale. Look at that. It says 2 for $15, but the ones in the front look like 2 for $13. But I guess depends on the handwriting, right? And some Russian sage, another really beautiful spike type purple bloom. Now this is great for an area that leans dry. So if you have some really dry soil, rocky soil, Russian sage really thrives in those conditions, and it likes full sun. So hot and dry is what Russian sage prefers. Look at that, really pretty. Kind of wild looking, right? So these are also $9.98, and you can see here, Russian sage. And some varieties are shorter than others. This one looks like it might be like a mid-size. So this variety grows 36 to 48 inches. So I would say it's probably a taller variety. Hardy down to negative 20 degrees or a zone 5. And some beautiful sedums. Now I have to say, I know that you often tell me that my Home Depot is really good, and I'm really appreciating that today, because I just came from another one of the box stores, and this place is fully stocked with all of the plants that are supposed to be available now to transition into the fall and for planting. And here's a great example of that, the sedum. Look how beautiful that is. It has dark foliage, very similar in look to, say, the Matrona. Now let's see what variety this is. Oh, it is. Look at that. So this is the Stonecrop Matrona, and it is a sedum. It gets like a medium to tall height. Let's see. 18 to 24 inches. So this would be a great like second row of the border type plant. It likes full sun, and it blooms late summer to mid fall. Now, something that you should know about sedum is that they also like a well-draining soil in full sun. If they get too much water, they will start to rot and they will start to flop. But look how beautiful that is, that dark foliage with the heads of sedum that will then bloom this color pink here. Really pretty. And they're very hardy. Sedums are very hardy, down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 3. And check out this beautiful Heliopsis. Now this is another late season bloomer. Look at that. It looks like a cross between a sunflower and a Black-Eyed Susan, but it has this little bit of this orange and golden yellow. It is beautiful. And you know what's surprising about this is that look how sturdy they are. So despite this being a pretty tall perennial, those stems are really sturdy. So this variety is called the Oxeye Daisy Heliopsis Summer Eclipse. That is gorgeous. It says it is long blooming, easy to grow, has an upright habit, likes full sun, and it blooms early to late summer. 24 to 30 inches in height and needs 30 to 36 inch spacing, and hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I added some plants to my garden last year so that I would have late season interest. And some of those plants were Agastache and Joe Pieweed. Now this is another one that I will consider adding as well. Some Heliopsis, because that is beautiful. And these are by Vigoro and they are $10.98. And some ornamental grasses. Now this is the zebra grass, and you can see that it has sort of like a striping effect of the darker green and the lighter kind of a green yellow color. Really pretty. Now this variety gets pretty tall. Adds a lot of visual interest to the garden, provides some texture and movement in the breeze. Grasses are really pretty to look at with a little bit of breeze. And grasses typically like full sun in order for them to be the most upright. And you can see here, this one's called Zebra Grass, Miscanthus zabrinus, $16.98. It has a clumping habit, deer resistant. Most grasses are deer resistant. I've never seen them munching on them in my garden. And it's saying that it gets 6 to 8 feet in height and 4 feet in diameter. And it's hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now here is a grass that is beautiful but is not hardy in our zone. It is the purple fountain grass. Now it is hardy only, I believe, in zones 9 or 10 and up. So if you are in a colder region like I am in a zone 6, these would only be treated as an annual, but they are beautiful and they transition so nicely into fall arrangements. They get these really gorgeous plumes. I'm actually growing some on my porch containers at the moment and they're looking really pretty. And here's a new item I've never seen at the Home Depot. It is a Gorilla cart. So if you're in need of a new wheelbarrow, this looks like the Gorilla 4.5 cubic feet poly yard cart. It has 2 wheels in the front and a handle in the back. It is nice and lightweight. And if you leave it outside, it won't rust because it's plastic. $59.98. More coneflowers. So we saw a beautiful red variety in the front, and they still have some white and some orange ones. Look at that. Really pretty. And check out the name on the orange ones here. Those are the Artisan Soft Orange Coneflower. And there are some white ones on the other side too. That might be the White Swan or the Powwow White. Look at that. Beautiful. So if you like daisies and you want to keep the white bloom show going, a similar look flower is the coneflower. So this here is Coneflower Powwow White. And the Powwow line comes in white as well as a berry color, which is pink. So $10.98. And they have some Crocosmia. Crocosmia has really strappy foliage that almost looks like iris, but then they get these really beautiful kind of red blooms that the pollinators, specifically the hummingbirds, really love. Look at that. Really pretty. This is called Crocosmia Lucifer, and it is deer resistant, $14.98. It has an upright habit, and it gets to be 36 to 42 inches in height and hardy down to negative 20 degrees. And it blooms late summer, mid to late summer. Well, that brings us to the end of the August inventory here at the Home Depot. I hope that you enjoyed checking out what my store has in stock, and I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.